On the 12th of November 1865, in one of the Russian empires called Lithuania, which is presently a country on its own, a man called Wilfrid Voynich was born. This man is described as being a Polish revolutionary, antiquarian, and bibliophile born into a Polish-Lithuanian noble family. Born of a Polish petty official, otherwise a titular consular, Voynich attended gymnasium, what you would call post-primary school, in Suwałkia town in northeastern Poland, after which he went on to study at the universities of Warsaw and St. Petersburg. He graduated in Moscow University in chemistry and became a licensed pharmacist. In the previous episode number 48 that is, the author says that a curious eye revealed the unmistakable scribbling of the world's most mysterious book, the Voynich Manuscript. And I'll read. On page 172, the author goes on and says that reliably dated to few decades before the invention of the printing press, it was a creation of either of the following three men: Leonardo da Vinci, Roger Bacon, the 13th century philosopher, or Mr. Wilfrid Voynich himself. But as to why Professor Wilhelm's interests were inclined to such codex, I had no idea. Welcome to my channel. My name is Victor, the author of the File Soldier series of novels. Voynich, you will come to appreciate, operated one of the largest rare book businesses in the world and is remembered as the eponym of the Voynich Manuscript. Voynich became an antiquarian bookseller from around 1897 and opened a bookshop at Soho Square in London in 1898. It is on record that in 1902 he travelled to Italy and during this same year married a fellow former revolutionary, Ethel Lillian Boyle, the daughter of the famous British mathematician called George Boyle, who most of engineers like myself are well acquainted to. Voynich was naturalized a British subject on the 25th April 1904, taking the legal name Wilfred Michael Voynich. This man Voynich was a mysterious man who, because of suspicions revolving around his possessions, came to be investigated by some of the most powerful government security agencies in the world, including the FBI. Now, in 1912, Voynich bought 30 manuscripts from a Jesuit library at the Villa Mondragon in Italy, and one of these was distinctive because it consisted of some 120 vellum leaves, onto which Voynich was intrigued by the untranslatable script that seemed to be more European than Asian. The Voynich manuscript is an illustrated codex, handwritten in an unknown script. The vellum on which it is written has been carbon dated to the early 15th century. The manuscript consists of around 240 pages, with evidence of some pages missing. Some pages are foldable sheets of varying sizes. Most of the pages have fantastic diagrams, some crudely colored, with sections of the manuscript showing people, fictitious plants, astrological symbols, and with a text that is written from left to right. Further analysis indicates that it may have been composed in Italy during the Italian Renaissance. Hypotheses suggest that it is a script for a constructed language, an unread code, cipher, or other form of cryptography, or, of course, a meaningless hoax. This manuscript has never been deciphered, and none of the proposed hypotheses have been independently verified. But how did Professor Wilhelm Gutenberg come to possess this gem? Why was it in his possession? The manuscript, for all it was worth, seemed to have an impressive pedigree, but only time will tell. The Wilfred Voynich manuscript had to be dug into, but what for? Let's see what happens. If this evinced any disinclination to my probing, it was because I was much engrossed into the details of the magnum opus, against which I thought the trouble necessary. The uneasiness into which it plastered me was 10 times the guise it would have confronted anyone else with. But let this remain a story for another day. John, Professor Wilhelm echoed, fronting the fireplace. Like a man out of his mind, I answered, "Sir." A moment of light-heartedness in the deepening nuclear crisis of North Korea, he said. "What's the square root of 4? The escapism was like some interlude of music to my ears. My train of abstraction vanished between North Korea and the square root of 4. 2, I replied. "Wrong," he said. I threaded my way towards him and sat, my hand craned forward. In an unsettling manner of a thoughtful man, I was afoot again with another reply. +or -2. "Brilliant," he said. "It takes effort to learn the ropes, Mr. Taylor. Math is no exemption. Now go freshen up, son." In the attempt to settle down the recent nuclear crisis of the early 1990s, North Korea had successfully sought a non-aggression pact with the United States. News had it that amid fears that North Korea was ready to launch a medium-range missile, the US was trying to engage China's diplomatic corps to rally behind the international community's quest against this misgiving. Whether this had anything to do with Mission G-Prof or the Voynich manuscripts, I wouldn't exactly tell. But while Professor Wilhelm Gutenberg served between reality television shows and gladiator movies, I replied, "I should like that very much," and started for the staircase. "Ground floor, room number 3, he said. "I'll check my emails." I made downstairs, grabbed my luggage and plunged myself into a bathtub of lukewarm water. The hour was upon the stroke of 7 by the time the water went cold. I turned on the television and swung the window to the guest room slightly open. It was 7:05. Professor Gutenberg's mansion stood on Dachauer Street, 102. Quick inspection confirmed my luggage had not been tampered with. A flash of breaking news appeared on the television as I sneaked in bed. "Good evening, folks." Among other news making headlines this evening, a heavy shootout ensued at the Humboldt University in Berlin in the forenoon today, lasting close to an hour. Reliable sources say that the gunman, Mr. John Silverstein by name, was a former student of metaphysics at the Said University, deregistered about 3 years ago. This deregistration had come amid suspicion he had detonated a suitcase nuke in one of the college premises in protest against irregularities in the evaluation of his research papers pertaining to the Schrodinger's cat during his second year. "The man is a well-trained sniper," said Senior Police Constable Rainer Schwartz in an interview. Other sources reveal he has been assassinating elite members of the Said University for the past 2 years. 8 came, at 9 withered away. The day crumbled out into a snowy Tuesday the 22nd. I do not know how long slumber had knocked me out, but by the time the slipstream whistled past the glass window, my brain had stalled out of a micro-sleep. I dressed up, had my gun strapped in place and stepped out into the compound. Then I fidgeted about the veranda, exploring a blight of private curiosities. Between 2 concrete pillars, I saw 3 BMW Alpina automobiles, and I missed them when we popped into the compound that evening. And someone later parked them there. That I ignored. So let's just get back to Professor Wilhelm's upper chamber. Later, as it was, my assumption that Wilhelm might still be awake was confirmed the moment I sneaked in on him. "Mr. Wilhelm," I said, padding my way on. "Good evening, sir." "I'll be damned if we don't crack the Harley-Davidson's sacred chain dock," he quipped in jest. "Evening to you, sir. Do take a seat." So for those who are coming in for the first time, this is episode number 49. Up until the next one, goodbye, auf Wiedersehen.